All right, everyone. Welcome back to another video. Last time we left off, we were talking about the bombing of Kipling, Mandalaya. We are now on to Allied air attack on Japanese-held capital of New Guinea. April 1942. Airfield at Rabaul, my bad. Rabaul bombed. Smoke rolling. Here, I'll show you the picture. Smoke rolling from burning Japanese planes on Vuna Kanuna airfield at Rabaul, New Britain, as Allied bombers made the heaviest attack of the Pacific War up to that time on the Japanese-held base. 107 planes were destroyed or damaged in the raid. Note, the explosion near the Japanese plane in the Revetment foreground. Sorry, this is really hard to read, just where it is. It's not easy with where this text is. It's very hard. This operation was one of the many intended to end the threat of the Japanese domination of Allied lines of communication in the Pacific and north coast of Australia. The enemy having exploited his success on the Malayan Peninsula to bring the entire Netherlands, East Indies under his dominion. The effects of the desperate resistance offered by the Philippine Army and United States forces on Bataan, holding as they did a sizable portion of Japanese strength, were now being felt. During the delay, thus gained men and materials were dispatched to Australia, New Caledonia, and other Pacific islands. The growth of power of the United Nations in the Southwest Pacific was presaged by our air forces, which were now performing long-range bombing missions against Japan's newly acquired bases in the Bismarcks and New Guinea. You can see, we could just see the damage here. And yeah, Japan gets slightly slowed down in what they wanted to conquer in certain places, and so they don't achieve their full war goals. So, like, getting held up in the Philippines, things like that. It's a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but it holds them up long enough that the United States and Australia are able to reorganize to better counterattack the Japanese. Heroic Malta has its 2000th air raid alert. April 7th, 1942. Malta defies the Luftwaffe. The island of Malta, which stands on the direct sea route from Italy to North Africa, and from which attacks were carried out by British aircraft on Axis convoys carrying reinforcements to General Rommel in Libya, was the subject of almost non-stop attack by German and Italian bombers. During April, the enemy launched a particularly heavy offensive in order to ground British aircraft while his convoys made the dangerous crossing to North Africa. And on the 7th, Malta had its 2000th air alert since the war began. On this day alone, the enemy employed about 500 aircraft on attacks on the island. According to reports from Valletta, about 4,200 houses had been destroyed in raids to date, as well as the island's opera house, the church and monastery of the Sacred Heart, the Capuchin Covenant Church, and the Chapel of Our Lady Lourdes. Yeah, they were all very much damaged. Left bomb damage in the center of Valletta. You can see, yeah, this place is heavily damaged. Some of it still stands, obviously, like with many of these raids, but you can just see the absolute devastation to that building. Here we can see bombs bursting. You can see the big plumes of smoke there and there. But bombs bursting on the harbor. So that's probably not just smoke. That looks like actually water as well, going up in the air. And then below, bomb bursts on the island. There's a few. One kind of right there, a little bit right there, but obviously this one, huge plume of smoke. That's probably reaching about 100 feet in the air. Probably more than that, actually. Probably almost 500, if I want to get generous. That is a huge explosion. End of U.S. resistance on the Bataan Peninsula. April 9th, 1942. End of a heroic defense. On April 9th, the U.S. and Filipino defenses of the Bataan Peninsula of Luzon were smashed by Japanese forces, and an epic resistance which lasted for 4 months was brought to an end. General Wainwright's forces on the island amounted to 36,800 men, nearly all of whom were killed or captured, but some of them, including 3,500 U.S. Marines, succeeded in escaping to the island of Corregidor, which continued to hold out. Although outnumbered 6-1, the defending forces put up a magnificent resistance and succeeded in inflicting 60,000 casualties on the enemy. It was only after they were physically exhausted by days and nights of fighting that they were finally compelled to give up. The pictures show, above left, Japanese forces on the peninsula passing blazing oil dumps that had been set on fire by the defenders before they surrendered. And right, some of the Japanese prisoners captured during the fighting. On the left, 2 of the Japanese soldiers killed in the fighting are seen lying where they fell. On the left here. My bad. You can see the 2 lying where they fell. This one doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It says some of the Japanese prisoners. Oh, okay, now I see. Yep, I understand now. And then on the right, a Bataan village after had been blasted by enemy artillery. Once again, a picture I think we've seen like 1,000,000 times at this point of just look at the devastation to these buildings. You can understand why most of the world was basically reeling from this war. Like, the devastation is astronomical. The amount of homes, people, everything just blasted into non-existence during this war is staggering. It really is. Marching into Hell, April 1942. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but their tragic ordeal of privation and humiliation at the hands of the brutal Japanese began for these gaunt, here, I'll show you the picture, these gaunt, weary defenders of Corregidor as they surrendered to the smirking enemy. Disclosures in January 1944 revealed that many of these men, part of the 12,000 captured at the rock fortress of Manila Bay, were herded together like cattle and kept without food for 7 days. Then they were marched in humiliation through Manila in a long, weary trek to a Japanese prison camp. The weak and stumbling knocked right back into line, those falling by the wayside being bayoneted to death by the inhumane foes, in direct violations of the Geneva Convention. Yeah, this is, I believe, it says marching into hell, but this is the March from Hell that they're talking about. It is some of the most inhumane, horrible things to have ever happened to any human being. There are some things that are like of similar case. Like the Holocaust, obviously, just in general, is a horror to many who ever had to go through it. The Trail of Tears is similar in the United States when the U.S. government, well, not, I shouldn't say the whole government, Andrew Jackson and the U.S. military who followed him, marching all natives to basically around Oklahoma. It's not quite there, but around there. It's very similar to what happens there, but yeah, this death march is awful. What the Japanese do to these people it's terrible. And I don't 100% know if the Japanese will have admitted to this. Like I said, there are a lot of things that they won't admit that happened in this war. This might be one of the things that they do admit and they apologized for. I'm not sure, but yeah, Japan has some dark things hiding in any of their closets. It's really bad. Obviously, you can't blame the Japanese of today for what happened here. They didn't do this. But still, what happened during this is awful. Very, very awful. All right, well, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I could improve on. And as always, subscribe. It has been helping out the channel a bunch. So I really thank you very much.